Hey, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to Starting a Record Label. Now, this is a podcast where I journal starting a record label. And so, I'm kind of a nerdy guy. I obviously have another podcast called Yellow Spandex. I mean, that's nerdy enough. We talk about superheroes and comics, whatever. I love cartoons and sci-fi movies and punk rock and, all that stuff kind of used to be kind of put together. Like you were the odd dudes at the table, or girls too, at school. And so, you talk about weird things, like you talk about machines taking control of the world or whatever else you wanted to talk about at the non-jock, non-cool table. Not that I didn't like sports, because I loved baseball, but I definitely wasn't in that crowd when I was younger. It was kind of hard to find people like myself growing up. Nobody actually wanted to tell anyone if they liked any of the things I was talking about, comics or anything. I even met a dude who was in one of my classes, I think in 10th grade, and he was like kind of a jock. He was running with that crowd, and it was kind of like a breakfast club kind of thing, to where we're going to put it aside, and I just got talking to him for a while. I was like, yeah, I need to make it home to watch Spider-Man, and I was kind of half jokingly talking about it, and he's like, dude, I love that show too. And we went on about talking about NES games that we still play and all this other crap, and I was like, holy crap, this dude is just like me. Like, it's just really weird that, like, deep down most people have some things in common. I'm not sure if maybe, I think nowadays, like, it's really easy to find people that are like you. Like, if you want to go online and find some people that are into some obscure thing, like monster movies or something, you can totally do it. There's tons of ways to do that, whether it's YouTube or anything else. But back then it was a little hard, it's just, people didn't do that. You kind of were shunned a little bit if you did, or made fun of. And, everybody deep down liked punk rock or something silly, that's why we had Blink-182 and like all those movies. And now we have Marvel movies, where people are actually super interested in that. And they come out of the woodwork like, oh yeah, I watched X-Men when I was like in 6th grade, Still watch it today, actually. So it comes to like no surprise that like the name for the label that I've chosen has a few things similar that was kind of woven into it. But here's where I'm coming from. I'm going to back it up a little bit. You're growing up, the music industry was kind of in full mode. This is like the 80s and 90s, and even indie labels were kind of being born then, like big indie labels. You got like Sub Pop, Matador, Lookout Records, Tooth and Nail. They're all, getting their big start. And people were looking for something different in the early 90s. I mean, that's why we got Nirvana and the whole grunge phase. And punk had a huge impact too. I mean, Green Day's Dookie album was giant. It was huge. And so much so that, like, with Nirvana and all the other stuff that was going on, they kind of coined the phrase like alternative music, because they didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't pop music, but it was popular, And so, like, each indie label had their own distinct flavor and fans. They might not have had, like, the same, there's only punk here and it's only this or that there. They might have, like, mixed a little bit in between. But they definitely had, like, a distinct, group of people that liked what they did. So much so that, like, majors started buying up mid-sized indie labels. They're just, they wanted them because they had popular artists on them, obviously. But it was also because, like, majors were kind of bland, especially in the early 90s. They were bland even for just pop music, but not that pop music is bad. I love catchy, well-written, honest song, no matter the genre. My cassette and CD and vinyl collection will definitely tell you that. So it might have been fine for a while had the internet tech revolution kind of not happened, and those Napster and MP3s never come along, so that the industry kind of just kept chugging, because there's, you got democratization of everything, to where, hey, if I like this certain kind of music, I can kind of find where it's at, and even before the internet, it was really weird how we would actually find all those albums. Like me, I would find stuff that I loved, and like a group of people today would talk about, like a dude living in like Wisconsin versus someone living outside Chicago versus someone living in like Texas or something. We'd all have like a similar like experience. And it was kind of before the internet really took hold. So it's kind of weird how that kind of came together even back then. But when people realized that they didn't have to pay for like $15 to $20 per CD in the Napster era, where you can get everything for free, it was kind of all over. I mean, who wants to pay money, especially like as a high school student or a college student? College Josh didn't want to. Some goodness sakes, how much stuff that I actually stole. I mean, music I stole, and at the time, with how much CD sales they lost, it's not only forced these small indie labels to go out of business, but eventually it even shook majors. And it took a while for the majors to move on to MP3s even. The indies were smarter, but they didn't really help as much just because, it was Apple that started iTunes and iPods. Then they could start selling music again and even ringtones. But these labels didn't even have half the money that they had like 5 years prior. The majors started letting like these side genres go. These indie labels they had kind of like absorbed. They stopped producing for stuff like that. They stopped making things that they deemed unprofitable. They kind of only started doing the mains. They did hip hop and R&B, pop and country. And it was kind of rough in that era. Like a lot of those indies did hang around for a while. I mean, there's some of them are still here, but some of them they even bought and resold. I think Tooth and Nail was owned by EMI for a while. Correct me if I'm wrong, and then it's sold back to, I think it's back with Brandon Ebel. So I'm not sure just how things worked in that day and era. And because I was kind of in college and doing some stuff during that like 2005 to 2010, 15 era. And things have definitely changed. So anyway, fast forward to this age of streaming and Spotify and YouTube. And the music industry has kind of slowly become a machine that I'm not happy about, living in it, recording in it. I think I've talked about it before, but like, I was thrown into so many situations that just didn't make me happy, and before I moved out here, I was just recording like little crap town bands, and then they were having fun and they were doing things that they loved, and they were serious about it even for a lot of them. And it was just weird how unserious the actual music business was. People wouldn't show up to sessions, or they'd come in and they'd go out and drinking. We'll be back, we're going to go to the club for a few hours. I'm like, okay. Just the attitudes and how it was even done. It was crazy how it was done with a lot of stuff, because I'd actually recorded a lot of songwriters and for their labels. And it was weird. Everything was kind of done in a weird kind of conveyor belt fashion. It'd almost be like if you went to a car factory or whatever. It's like, we're gonna put on the doors and then we're gonna move on to the next part. I mean, take a look at like the hit songs right now. I mean, they have anywhere from like 6 to 13 songwriters on them. They've just been pushed and mushed together. When I would get into a songwriting session, we'd have a producer come in, or like what we call like a producer, but there's a million words for that. But what I mean is like a beat maker would come in and they'd audition like 30 different songs to like a group of people. Sometimes the artist's not even there. Sometimes just management for the artist. It was weird. And once a backing track was kind of chosen, it'd be sent off to the top line writers. And those people, their only job was kind of to write a catchy new melody. Sometimes it included the lyrics, but not always. And so one person did something, another person did the other thing. Sometimes they wouldn't even touch the artist until there was lyrics thrown on it and anything else. They'd go to show management and the artist, and then they'd go through hundreds of songs, seeing what they liked. And like that wasn't, the artist didn't barely touch any of it until then. And I didn't see much beyond that, because at that point then they started getting like either bigger producers or something to start working with it. But like just that, I don't know, you'd end up with a song with like 10 people on it. And to be honest, I've even seen tons of people left off those lists. I was definitely left off a ton of lists for like engineering and stuff. Like, credits have been, even just regular credits that I don't get money for, were just awfully done. Like, I don't know what the deal was. But I know those writing credits were probably pretty bad with they maybe whoever's producing behind another producer, like shadow producing for them. Maybe they signed a bad contract with a producer and became part of his team. Or maybe, you know what, maybe he's getting just paid a certain amount of money every week and he signed a contract for that and he's making a decent living and maybe he's happy about that. But I know there's a lot of people that were doing the writing behind it that didn't end up on that writing in the end. And it's such a weird feeling. And I just don't know, like, especially with pop music, like, if you're putting together an album, like, how cohesive can that be? Like, I've recorded like thousands of songs and hundreds of bands, and I'm like, when we do an album, or even when we were like doing an EP or something, we want like it to be cohesive, and it's just really weird that you could make music that way. And I just don't feel like I've bought some of that stuff that I kind of worked on. I'm like, I don't know if I feel this. Like, I don't know if it works together as well as, say, Jimmy Eat World's Futures album, So it's weird, But, working that way isn't exactly bad. It's just, like, I write music that, like, and I've done stuff for over the years. The artist in me just doesn't like it. Like, co-writing to me is like a great way to help add a different flavor into the mix, You can get out of your writer's block, stop becoming like a factory. It becomes kind of problematic. I mean, I was watching this movie a few weeks ago. I mean, it's a great movie. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's called Ford versus Ferrari. And, like, I love cars, but I don't know squat about cars. And I don't know how true to actual life the movie is. Biopics sometimes aren't very true. But there's a great quote between, or a great dialogue between Carroll Shelby, who was Matt Damon, and the owner of Ford, which I don't remember that actor's name. And, he goes through and he's going to get yelled at because his car didn't win some race. And, the whole time, like, he's kind of being buffered by the other people in the company saying, you got to do this, and you can't do that, you're not allowed to use this driver, and you got to use these kind of things. And as he's in the waiting room, he sees like a folder, like a red folder getting passed around to people before he goes in to talk to Ford, like the big dude. And he gets in there and he's like, you know what? I've seen that red folder go around the entire room, and I bet it went around downstairs too. And you're got 30 people looking at it, and making these decisions piece by piece. You can't win a race by committee. And that really, like, kind of struck me. And I know other people have talked about it in, like, the indie, like, or in the film industry too, to where, like, things just get bogged down by so many different hands kind of in the kitchen. Legendary songs are rarely made by a committee. They can be made by different songwriters or co-writing. Definitely, absolutely, 100%. But, like, what I'm talking about is, the kinds of music. Those songs that are put in that are like, there are top 10 songs where you're like, people aren't going to forget this. Like, this song is so generic and skin deep and forgettable. Yeah, it might be catchy. It might appeal to somebody at this point in time. And I'll tell you, a ton of those songs that I helped record never saw the light of day. And people working on them sometimes just weren't even, like, very interested. They're just, like, fulfilling whatever publishing thing they were doing at the time. It just makes me say, like, labels, what are you doing? I understand the bean counters want to make sure that they don't make a mistake with their money. But the point, like, has kind of sailed when you start screwing with the artistic process. Like, you're not going to make anything better. You're not an artist. I think back on... there's this thing on the internet, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm not sure if it's true completely. It's an audio recording of William Shatner, and he was doing a commercial or something, and he had somebody kind of like trying to tell him to do it differently, and William Shatner's getting pissed, and he's like, "Well, tell me, how would you read it?" Kind of just like being a smart ass. And the guy, like, obviously not knowing what the heck he's doing, is way over his head. He reads, like, whatever read that he's supposed to be reading for the commercial or whatever it is. And it's lifeless and whatever. And he's the person that's, trying to tell, William Shatner what to do as an actor. And William Shatner, like, goes, "Oh, you want me to read it like that?" And he literally reads it the same way that the jerky management, whatever it was read it, and it was awful. And you could tell, the guy that said it, told whoever was in charge there, was like just appalled at himself for even suggesting such a thing. And Shatner was literally like, okay, we're done. I guess we're done with that. Okay, let's move on. Let's go home. And the guy's like, please don't, please. And you could just tell, like, you just, get caught. You think you know better when that, and you really just need to kind of let the artistic process move forward. You can't win a race by committee, and you can't release music like one either. It's something like a robot would make, like down the line, making cars. It's like the bumper sticker, like music was better when ugly people made it. It's true. Well, and when people cared more about developing artists, probably they probably made better music. Like they worry so much about the artistry, and it's not just the writing, it's the industry as well. They signed so many acts, and they shelved so many acts. They didn't even know why they were signing what they were doing. Sometimes they didn't even know what they had. They didn't even know what they wanted. You go back and listen to my podcast with the Dares. It's episode 3, where they signed the Dares because they wanted like a Jonas Brothers band. And if you listen to any of the Dares music, whether it's the stuff that I made or even I think they got some stuff on it that were made under the label there, that's not the Jonas Brothers. I mean, they're young rock dudes, but like they're not them. Like, what were they thinking? They think they could smush them into what they wanted? What was the label thinking? It's ridiculous sometimes. I mean, when you get giant like that into a big machine, it's just weird. Just like a quote that's attributed to Hunter S. Thompson. I don't even know if it's real. I looked it up a while back, and they said it might not be completely his. But the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench. A long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. And I laugh because it's true. I've seen so many people get ripped off. And not only that, people not getting credit for where credit's due. And people not being listened to because, some higher up somewhere, someone that has the money, someone has this or that, doesn't even give them the time of day. Like, it's a machine-like nature of an industry. It's just off-putting. And like, since the fall of like the CD and the rise of streaming, the gatekeepers are kind of trying hard to stay relevant. We can walk around them now. They literally throw things at the wall until something sticks. Today, you don't need the major labels to distribute your music. You've even seen it done with Chance the Rapper and Macklemore. The marketplace is wide open for innovation, right? How are labels still kicking and doing what they do? They even started trying to innovate themselves by working with more television and internet celebrities. I mean, way back when they even started doing it, like with William Hung. You remember him in like 2003 when he was on American Idol? And they laughed at this kid. And like, I felt so bad for him. Like, he was practically laughed off that show because he, it's like, it's even like a bad Asian stereotype. I don't understand how they got away with it. But like, that, he was just an awful singer, and they let him on to laugh. I mean, he was on network television. It was weird. I don't know if their ratings were falling or what it was, but it gained like a huge internet following because of it. And like a small record label like swooped in and like capitalized on that. They made 200,000 copies of like a cheaply made album for this dude. And I don't know if maybe he's got some problems or whatever, but like, he took that. I mean, it's probably smart to take it because it's a lot of money. He'd already been kind of made fun of. And I don't know if he actually got a lot of money about it, to be honest. But if you listen to this album, look it up on Spotify. It's his first album, and it is literally karaoke tracks. It is like an awful keyboard sound for everything, and it's him just doing pop songs. And they sold 200,000 copies. This is back in like CDs era still. And that's crazy. And that's like a record label kind of just capitalizing on something ridiculous like that. I mean, at least Rebecca Black, when she, did that Friday song, I felt bad for her too. At least she tried to capitalize on it herself. She deserves any money she gets from it too, because she was ridiculed as like a kid for making a silly song in a video. I felt bad. I feel bad for people that, get made fun of on the internet. I did so much stupid stuff before they did recording. Gosh, I'm so glad that that's not on the internet that I know of, at least. But, and I'm getting to all this stuff, and I'm kind of rolling into the reason why I'm kind of making and naming the thing. I'm naming the label the way I'm naming. What was kind of really I don't know if it's the final straw, but like, you remember the bad baby girl? Like her, you'd probably remember her as the Catch Me Outside girl. She was on Dr. Phil, and she became a meme. And because she was a meme, and because she kind of like, she had like a witty humor and very mean-spirited like comebacks and whatnot, she had like a ton of internet fans. And she became huge on the internet, which is fine, whatever. But what happened was Atlantic Records gave her like $1 million record deal. Do you know how many songwriters I've recorded that deserve this more? Like, it's weird. I mean, it's a brilliant move for that businessman that did it. But it shows that the industry isn't capable of developing actual artists anymore. They're in it for like a publicity stunt. They can make some like a quick buck maybe, and that's all. Like, it's like a heartless, mechanical pursuit. That's what I see the music industry today. And the kid in me is asking, where are the heroes of this industry? Where are the songwriters? Where are the small artists? I'm sure they're out there. They're hard to find. In a way that you can connect with anybody, why aren't they being promoted? They're probably all working like second jobs just to get by. Well, probably not now with this whole thing going down, but that'll probably kill a lot of artists, the younger artists that were probably getting somewhere a little bit. I mean, maybe they're the producers and songwriters that are kind of being forced to kind of like hail Hydra, Hope they don't get burned by a bad contract. I don't know. It's not for me. It's not for me for today. I don't want a conveyor belt like of mediocrity. I want to take chances on like flesh and blood people and like actually work together. And if I'm ever confused about any of this in the future, I want to be able to like play this back. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be a robot. And I picked this name out so long ago. And I felt this way for such a long time. And I mean, as a record label name, it's ridiculous. It's nerdy. It's cheesy. It's something someone would say in like a comic or a cartoon or a bad, sci-fi channel movie. It's on the nose. It's ridiculous, and it's me. And the name would be Not Today Robot. Not Today Robot. I've actually been thinking about doing something different for like at least a few months. Like if the name is too much me. And it is. And I like it. I've even had a logo done up by my friend Dan and Dan Patton, and he's, he did a great job. So it's ready for trademark and LLC and everything else that I got to do beyond there. It's really weird. Like even making a name. There's so many names that you could be like, that's an okay name, But I love this one because I don't know, maybe in me it kind of embodies all that nerdiness that I had when I was younger and into punk rock and watching cartoons. So, once again, I want to help great artists who are good people, good hardworking people, to create amazing music and develop and market our brands together. I'm not going to play the industry's game. We're doing something different. And to quote another nerdy film, The Enemy of the State, in war, you try to use your weaknesses as strengths. If they're big and you're small, then you're mobile and they're slow. You're hidden and they're exposed. You only fight the battles you can win. And I can't wait for this whole virus thing to be over. I mean, other people have other reasons too. But I know that we can kickstart this thing when it does. We don't have to wait anymore. We don't have to wait on anyone. That being said, I'm searching for bands now. As soon as I'm able to, I'm going to be going out to shows, meeting people, discussing possibilities. As crazy as it is right now, I'm content. And we may not have all the funds available at the very, very beginning, but we'll have it by the time we need it. We'll make it work. So thanks for listening. Please make sure you subscribe. We're on Podbean, but we're also on Stitcher and Overcast and Apple Podcasts and all those things, man. But until next time, thanks for listening.